Demon-Kissed, Chapter 18. The dawn breaks as waves upon the shore, gilding our blades in bloodied splendor as we heed the Morgaine's call to war. And our enemies begin to fall, we heed the call, we heed the call, we heed the call to war. As the song drew to a close, I could not help but continue to sing the last line of the song alone. To war, to war, we ride the dawn tide to war. My voice seemed to echo off of the buildings around us, and Cade gave a low laugh. "What?" I asked, and he shook his head. "Nothing, really. Just remembering Lay telling me once that out of all of the warriors under her command, you were the only one that could sing worth a damn," he said, and laughed again. I took the compliment from him and launched into Metallica's For Whom the Bell Tolls. Cade chose the next song after that, and we sang the rest of the way home, trading off on songs until we reached the house. "I'm for bed and probably will remain there until well after nightfall," he said over his shoulder when we entered the house and heading for the stairs. I bid him a good day's rest and stood in the silence of the foyer for a moment, then followed after him. Knowing the girls, they would be up in a few minutes and starting the morning meal. Mikhail would most likely get in at around mid-morning and sleep for the rest of the day, I mused, and as I climbed the stairs. Though I felt tired, I was too restless to go to bed, and I knew that I would get no rest this day. There was work that could keep me occupied until I left the house again this afternoon, and I could always torment the women if the work failed to keep my attention. The second floor was peacefully quiet, though as I passed Cade's door I heard something hit the floor in his room with a metal clink and could hear him swearing. Shaking my head in amusement, I continued down the hall and up the stairs to the third floor. All was quiet here as well, and I moved down the hall quickly, only slowing when the stairs leading to the fourth floor were in sight. Was Shay still in my rooms, or had she gone to her own after I left our mental link? I wondered, climbing the steps silently. I couldn't hear music, so I assumed the stereo was turned off, and I cautiously stepped into the gallery from the landing. I had not thought to contact her again after my confrontation with Feaster, and was dreading her worry-induced anger when she learned that I had returned home. Not detecting her in the main room, I moved to my closed bedroom doors and found them locked. I could sense Shay on the other side of the doors, and was tempted to just unlock them with my mind. She had locked me out of my own bedroom, for some reason or other that most likely would only make sense to her. If I left them locked and remained in the gallery, I could put off confronting her anger for a little while, but only for a little while. "I know you're just standing out there, Nick," her voice said through the door, and I heard her sigh. "You turned off my stereo and locked me out of my room, Shay," I said. "So? Turn it back on and unlock the door. I know you don't need me to unlock the frigging thing for you," she said, her tone revealing that she was indeed angry, and I sighed. "Shaya, my dear, this is rather childish and beneath you," I said, and heard her growl. "I'm tired of being the only female in the house who behaves like a grown-up," she snapped. I stared at the door incredulously for a long moment, then leaned my forehead against the wood, dislodging my hat, and laughed softly at the situation. "Shay, unlock the door, please," I said, and heard her snarl in response. "No." The word was low and gravelled by a growl. "Look, I know you're mad at me, and we can talk about it, but I refuse to do my grovelling on this side of the door," I said, and something crashed into the door on the other side, followed by a long, low, mournful howl. I heard ripping sounds, the sound of claws tearing wood, and more snarling than silence. "If you are done destroying my bed or my clothes, would you kindly unlock the door and let me into my room?" I said, wincing as I heard the sound of glass breaking, and imagined either the standing mirror or the crystal bowl I had in there lying in ruins on the floor. The locks clicked a moment later, and I opened the door cautiously. When nothing hit the door, I poked my head around the edge and looked into the darkened room beyond. The bed curtains were lying in shreds on the floor. Both the mirror and the bowl were shattered. A book was laying in front of the door, and the far wall had deep scratch marks in it. Shaking my head at the destruction that I could see, I stepped into the room and surveyed the rest. "Shay, I know you are still in here, and I really would like to talk to you," I said as I made my way through the room, stepping around or over shredded clothing and shoes. "Talk about what? How you pushed me out of your mind before doing something stupid? Or maybe we could discuss the fact that you did not contact me to let me know that you were okay? Or perhaps we could talk about how much of an absolute ass you are," she said sweetly from the bathroom, and I cringed at the tone. "All of the above," I said, and stopped in the bathroom doorway. She was standing in front of the sinks, looking at herself in the mirror, and not wearing a stitch of clothing except for a thin gold chain around her neck that held a small Celtic knot made of a dark green stone. Her long black and white hair fell in a cascade past her thighs, obscuring most of my view, and her normally dark blue eyes were a bright amber color at the moment. I leaned one shoulder against the doorframe, crossed my arms, and watched her for a moment. The change in eye color indicated that her wolf was close to the surface, and riding her hard with her temper. For once I couldn't think of one thing to say that wouldn't just piss her off more, and I was at a loss. The only female that I had ever had pissed at me this much had been Lay, and I had gotten her over it by training in hand-to-hand with her until we were both exhausted and bruised. That would not work with Shay, though. I would need to come up with something else. "I cannot believe the shit you pulled on me tonight, Nick. What you said to me before you left, that was bad enough. But the stupid fucking bullshit you pulled later, that, Nick, that took the fucking cake. I had no gods be damned idea if you were still alive, or if you had finally gotten your dumb ass killed," she said, voice angry and eyes flashing golden sparks in the mirror. "I know you were worried, and," I began, and she cut me off. "Worried? I wasn't worried, you idiot. I was scared. Flat fucking terrified that something had happened to you," she yelled, whirling around to face me, and continued, "Do you have any fucking clue as to how many times in my life that I've been that scared?" she asked, but didn't give me the chance to answer. "Once! I have only been that scared once. Once, Nick. And that was the last day Lay rode out of the keep, never to return," she finished, her voice lowering and growing unsteady until it broke on the last 3 words. I stood there in the doorway, stunned and more lost than I had been before her outburst. "I am sorry, Shay." It was the only thing I could think of to say to her, and I knew it wasn't enough. Shay was one of the few bright spots left in my life, and I'd frightened her badly. I could never apologize enough for that, nor could I make it up to her. "Sorry doesn't cover it or make it better, Nick," she said, and pushed past me into the bedroom. Looking at the damage she had done to the room, she shook her head, muttered, "Not enough, Dom. Sorry is never enough if you wind up dead," under her breath, then tapped the pendant once and shifted to Wolf and back again. Fully clothed now, she stalked to the doors and out of the room. "Shay, I started, following her out of the room, and she raised her hand, stopping my words. "No, I have had it. I am done. I am finished. I quit. The only reason I even came with you in the first place, Nick, was that you needed someone near you that could figure a way around your temper and keep you occupied with either the club or your artwork. Nowhere in there did I say that I could or would put up with typical male bullshit, like what you pulled last night, and you cannot tell me that that wasn't what you were doing when you shut me out of your mind," she said, and started down the stairs. Would you believe me if I told you that I did it because of what I was going to do? I asked, and she stopped moving. You needed an anchor, Nick. I know you did, because Lay had needed one every time she delved into an enemy's mind, and you pushed me out of your mind, she said. I know that, now, but I didn't at the time, and I said, then trailed off as I realized what I had been about to say. Wanted to protect me, she finished for me, and I sighed. I know. That's why I locked the door and trashed the room. If I were you, I'd avoid wearing those knee-high black leather boots of yours until I had them cleaned, and I would also think of ways to make it up to me, she said, and disappeared down the stairs. A few moments later, the front door slammed, and I moved to the windows overlooking the front of the house. She was standing on the walkway, looking up at the house, and I thought she might have been crying. When I reached out to touch her mind, though, she slammed the mental door shut between us, glared at the windows, shot me the finger, and dashed down the sidewalk and out of sight. Not knowing quite what to do with myself, I wandered back into the bedroom and began cleaning up the mess. 5 minutes after I started cleaning, I finished with the mess in the bedroom and had moved on to the wreck that once was my closet. Remembering what Shay had said about my boots, I located all 5 pairs that were knee-high and made of black leather and checked them. The last pair I checked were made of hand-tooled black leather that laced up the side, with an intricate silver inlay, my favorite pair, and currently smelled to the high heavens of urine and something else that I refused to identify. What she had done to those boots was heinous in the extreme and beyond vile. They were my favorite pair because they had made them for me and had given them to me as a winter feast gift the second year I had been in the guild. She had even had them enchanted to clean and repair themselves, and until about 12 years ago I had worn them every day, rarely taking them off even when I went to bed. Now I had no idea if the enchantment would or could save them. "Thou shalt not befoul a man's shoes and live," I muttered direly, and took the boots through a hidden door in the back of the closet. The hidden door opened onto a winding wrought-iron staircase that led to a glass-roofed arboretum and private garden on the ground floor of the house. The scents of roses, lilacs, cosmos, violets, goldenrod, and other living green things drifted up the stairwell, and I took a deep, appreciative breath as I descended the stairs. Building this addition to the house had been difficult and challenging. The final result of all that effort, though, was highly rewarding and had become a favorite spot for everyone that lived in the house with me, especially those of Feyan blood, as they had the ability to gain power from the natural energy of the plant life and water fountains. As for myself and others in the house, we simply reveled in the peaceful ambience of the garden and used it to relax after a long day. Stepping off of the last stair, I paused for a moment, looking up at the ceiling to note that the sun had risen, and then moved down the main pathway between tiered rows of flowers that should have already gone to sleep for the winter a month ago. The trick behind the longer blooming period was the complicated heating and lighting system that I and one of Lay's sons, David, had spent hours working on and implementing throughout the room. It had been a royal pain to figure out, but when we were done, it had resulted in a garden that bloomed almost year-round, and one that we could enjoy even if there were snow on the ground outside. Passing the vegetable beds, I noted that the tomatoes were in need of picking, and that the zucchini was taking over the path again. It seemed that if we let the plants grow unsupervised, they had a tendency to crawl out of their beds and into the paths, creating trip hazards and made traversing the garden nearly impossible without stepping on a piece of plant at some point. At one point I had considered installing a waterfall down here, but had decided against it on the grounds that it would have taken up space that could be used for herbs and other edible plants. Taking a left-hand path, I walked to the doors leading outside and exited the house to set the boots on the patio. Hoping that they could be worn again in a few days, and wondering what I'd do if they were ruined permanently, I re-entered the garden room and made my way back to the stairs. Back in the closet, I noted that the 7-foot-long, 3-foot-wide wooden trunk sitting in the corner at the back hadn't been touched by Shay when she was destroying my things, and I moved to it. Touching the lid, I gently ran my fingers over the detailed carvings and remembered the hours it had taken me to create the images. I hadn't opened the trunk in nearly 300 years, and I hesitated for a moment before opening it. I lifted the lid, carefully leaning it against the wall, and looked at the contents of the trunk. Anyone outside the family looking in the trunk as I was would view the items inside as nothing more than old junk, and would most likely throw it out if they did not know its historic value. To me, the pre-Dark Ages dresses, tunics, boots, breeches, and belts were worth more than gold. Reaching under the clothing, I felt around until my fingers touched cold stone and metal, then grasped the hilt of one of the many weapons in the bottom and pulled it from the depths of the trunk. I held the 2-foot-long short sword in one hand and used the other to trace the jewels in the hilt and scabbard. Made of cold-forged iron and weighing about 15 pounds, it was a thing of deadly beauty and was both created and wielded by Aelia Blackthorn. As I held the blade, I remembered watching her as she forged it, and remembered, too, the many times she had used it in battle. Setting it aside, I reached back into the bottom of the trunk and retrieved the other 12 bladed weapons, 9 leather pouches, 6 sword belts, and 3 bows lying within. One of the bows had somehow become tangled in the beadwork of one of the dresses, and it took me 10 minutes of careful manipulation to free it. The bowstrings needed replaced, and the bows themselves could do with a little polishing, but overall they were in the same condition they had been in when I first put them in the trunk, and I was thankful for it. All 13 blades needed to be sharpened, polished, and oiled. Their sheaths needed some minor care and cleaned. Taking the weapons from the closet one at a time, I placed them on my bed and got to work on them. 2 hours later, I was back in the closet and removing the clothing from the trunk and hanging it on my now mostly empty hangers on the left side of the broad space. The fabric of the dresses shimmered in the soft glow of the closet light, and the matching slippers practically glowed as though new, and in all reality they were, despite their age. Leigh had never worn them with her dresses. She had much preferred her black leather boots, and had refused to wear the bloody prissy slippers, much to her tailor's and grandfather's horror. She had also forged, yes, forged, the material the dresses were made of, so that they could act as a type of incognito body armor when she had to attend a ball or other similar function. I had no idea what kind of metal she had used or how she colored it, but it was strong, did not rust, and was as flexible as any cloth made at the time. Reaching back into the trunk, I lifted a large silver box out and, ignoring the smoke rising from my hands, opened it. Nestled in a bed of soft black fur was a variety of jewelry and a set of silver and gold vambraces. The item I was looking for was tucked into the upper right-hand corner of the box. Hooking one finger in the fine silver chain, I removed it from the box and closed the lid. Made of a ruby stone so dark red it appeared to be black, the pendant looked much like the one Shay had been wearing, and was identical to the one I wore beneath my t-shirt. An intricate double Celtic knot where Shay's had been a single knot. The stone was warm to the touch, and as I held it in my hand, it seemed to begin to glow with a faint light from within. No longer able to stand the burning pain from holding the silver box or ignore the smell of burning flesh, I took the box into the bedroom and placed it on the dresser. The necklace I took to the head of the bed and wound the chain around the hilt of the 6-foot-long greatsword now mounted on the wall above the bed. Returning to the closet, I pulled the last 4 items from the trunk and closed the top. As I unfolded the clothing, I tried to figure out why I was doing this, and came to the conclusion that on some level I had needed the comfort that seeing Leigh's things gave me. The first of the 4 items was an emerald green tunic that had a tree done in silver thread on the front and a big black hand done with obsidian beads on the back. The second item was a pair of black leather breeches decorated with silver buckles and random leather loops. The third was a black leather vest that had so many loops and pockets that it resembled something the modern military might use today. The fourth and final item was a pair of black leather boots that would come up to the top of the wearer's thighs, and had loops on the inside at the back for weapons, and had leather laces at the side. Lace every day and battle garb. "What are you doing?" a female voice in my mind asked, and startled me into dropping the boots. Soft laughter drifted through my mind as I bent to retrieve the boots, and though I felt like swearing, I felt a smile crease my face instead as I realized that Erin was the one who had spoken. Laughing a bit at myself, I placed the boots on the floor under one of the dresses and left the closet. I could sense Erin's curiosity as she waited for me to answer her question, and decided to keep her waiting for a bit. Moving to the dresser, I retrieved a clean pair of black jeans, a dark green t-shirt, and a pair of socks. "What? No underwear?" Erin asked, and I laughed as I checked the small clock on the wall beside the window. 4:15 p.m. I had enough time for a quick shower before I had to head over to Alistair's. I laughed harder a moment later when I heard a small eep as I walked into the bathroom, placed my clean things on the counter, and started to strip. I didn't sense her leaving my mind, though, and I had to wonder if she would remain in my head as I took a shower, or if that would cause her to leave. "To answer your first question, I was going through some old clothes and putting them on hangers," I said, dropping my dirty clothes on the floor and striding to the pool. "And my second one?" she asked, her mental voice distracted. "I do not care for them," I said, then added with a bit of deviltry, "Can I give you a better view? I can give you a better view, if you like, my lady." I sensed embarrassment and an intense curiosity from her, but she was apparently willing to play my game. "A view or the room? Because if you could give me a better view of the room, that'd be great," she said, making me laugh for the third time tonight, and I loved it. "I get the feeling that you don't laugh much." "I don't any more either. But for some reason it makes me happy whenever I hear someone laugh, even when they're laughing at me rather than with me. People like you and Alistair need to laugh more often. You have good ones, and you both are good people," she said, and my heart beat 1, 2, 3, 4 times, and then after 20 seconds it started pounding hard and fast in my chest, a very strange occurrence as it normally beat slowly once every 5 minutes. Ignoring it for the moment, I asked her, "How do you mean?" She withdrew for a moment, and I wondered if she even realized that she was using our link as though she had been using it for years, and not just under a day. It was amazing, terrifying, thrilling, and wonderful all at the same time. I hadn't been able to truly talk to someone like this for centuries, and I wondered, yet again, how our telepathic link could exist when we weren't blood bonded in any way. "What does that mean, blood bonded?" she asked, and added, "I think I heard Isaac say that in a dream once, but I'm not sure. It's kind of fuzzy, if you know what I mean." I blinked slowly and just breathed deeply for a few moments, as my mind sort of froze. Then it thawed, and I said, "Intriguing," and redirecting my attention from what I had asked you, "clever." Deciding to think about what she had said later, after I got to Alistair's and actually met her in person, I pushed those thoughts to the back of my mind quickly. "It most likely wouldn't have worked if I hadn't surprised you," she said seriously. "You are correct, Grasshopper. 2 points," I said, and sensed her amusement. "Grasshopper? Am I to call you Sensei now?" she asked archly, as I washed my hair quickly and reached for the bar of soap on the tray beside the pool. I had just been standing in the middle of the pool, talking to her for the last 40 minutes, and I didn't have time to dawdle. I needed to get clean, get dressed, and get gone in the next 15 minutes. It wasn't that I had given Alistair a time to expect me. For all he knew, I could show up at the time I did last night. But I did want to get there earlier in the evening, so that after I met Erin, I would have the chance to visit with my adopted nieces, nephews, sons, and daughters before dawn. "Hey, Nick! You're going to be late, boss man. I figured you might want to know." Shay called through the open bathroom door. Late for what? I only have 2 things planned for tonight, and neither take place in the next 30 minutes, I said. Why are Lay's things hanging in your closet? She asked as she walked through the door, and I heard Aaron say, "Aha!" in my mind. Shaking my head, I dunked myself under the water and quickly rinsed off. Stepping from the pool, I grabbed a towel and dried off quickly as I walked to the counter so I could get dressed. I was aware of Shay watching me move, but ignored it and dropped the towel. Then grabbed my jeans. Pulling them on with one hand, I pulled my shirt over my head with the other and switched hands to finish putting my shirt on. I left the jeans unsnapped and quickly ran the hairbrush through my hair. My hair was still soaking wet, but I didn't want to take the time to dry it properly. Erin laughed in my head, and I was fairly sure that she was laughing at me. At the moment, I was flustered and rushing to get out of the house. I truly did want to spend time with Lay's kids, but more I wanted to spend a little time in Erin's company and finish my planning session with Alistair. Boss?" Shay said, and I looked at her. She was looking from me to the mirror and then back again in wonder. I looked into the mirror and blinked once. "Huh," I said, then went back to brushing my hair, this time using the mirror to ensure it was lying smoothly. Put the brush down and snapped my jeans closed. Brushing by Shay, I returned to the bedroom and headed for the closet. Grabbing a pair of boots from a shelf on the right-hand side of the closet, I went to the dresser and grabbed a leather tie for my hair, then went and sat on the bed to pull my boots on. "You didn't think that was strange?" Shay asked, as I stood to buckle the boots up, and I glanced at her. I cocked my head a bit to one side and raised an eyebrow at her in question. "Your reflection in the mirror just now?" she said slowly in her "I am talking to a crazy person" tone, and I growled at her a little. "Oh, that. What about it?" I said, tying my hair back and grabbing my hat and coat off of the chair by the bed. Placing the hat on my head, I shrugged into the coat and left the bedroom. Shay trailed after me all the way down to the front door and stopped in the doorway. I stopped for a moment, retraced my steps back to her, and kissed her forehead. "Do not worry, little pet. Everything is fine, and I expect things to get much better in the near future," I said, and she blinked, then smiled faintly. "You need to stop by the club when you're done with whatever you're doing, Dom. Where will you be if I need you for anything?" she said, shaking her head and grabbing her jacket. It was then that I noticed that she was dressed for her shift as the manager of Fantasy, and remembered that I had agreed to go into work with her to do some paperwork tonight. "Oh, I'm sorry, Shay. I forgot about my promise to go into work with you tonight," I said sheepishly, and she waved it off. "All I need to know is where you're going to be in case something goes wrong at the club and I need you," she said. "I will probably be at Alistair's until dawn or later," I said, and she nodded. "I spent the day there torturing Merrick and Renzo," she said with an evil grin, blew me a kiss, and walked off into the gathering twilight. "She's interesting. Very beautiful, too. Does she see you naked often?" Aaron asked, and I tripped over my own damned feet. I'd almost forgotten she was still in my mind, she had been so quiet. "Yes, Shay is a beautiful lady, and Lay thought she was interesting, too," I responded. "Answer the question," she said patiently, with just a hint of amused frustration, as though speaking to a child, and I remembered that she had 14 children, and one of them was a fox kit, if I remembered correctly. Were any of the male kids feline, like I was? "Yes, one. Michelangelo. His other half is a pure white leopard. Now be a good kitty and answer my question," she said in a mild tone, and I sighed. The woman had what my nephew David called super mom radar. Lay had had a similar way of getting information from all of her kids and 9/10 of the men under her command. This woman was the mother figure for several otherkin children. Misdirection or non-answers would not work on her, and neither would lying. Lying to her would most likely result in an endless string of questions designed to take the lie apart, and I couldn't think of one. Anyway,